Welcome to Coffee with Ryan. I know I'm 2 minutes early, but that's okay because we can spend some time letting everyone arrive, and then we will get into the topic of the day, which is making no excuses and taking personal responsibility. I'm going to give you some personal examples, and I'm going to talk about the importance of the topic as a whole. But what I would like to do first is open up the chat. So let's see, make sure that my video is all working here. We're good. Audio good. Now let's pull up the YouTube channel, get to the video. Welcome everyone who's just joining us. I'm glad that you are here. And just give me a second here. There we go. Okay. So just so everyone knows, we now have a Discord, and I put the Discord for sorting myself out in the description. It's one of the links. The reason that we started a Discord is because it was recommended by several of our listeners and audience and our community, which I would prefer to call it at this point. And what they had pointed out is that it would be great to have a place where we can all gather together and share more and speak with one another. So we started a Discord, and for those of you who don't know what Discord is, it's essentially a function of being able to have a group chat in which everybody can communicate about a particular topic. So we do now have that. So if you want to be a part of that community, you can just go to the Discord link and join. You can create an anonymous account to keep yourself private, or you can sign up under your real name. So we've just got some people joining. I haven't really announced it too officially until now, but we hope that you join if you want to be a part of that conversation. It's pretty much an open discussion about sorting ourselves out. So what I want to focus on today is the element of taking personal responsibility for ourselves and really dissecting the excuses that are made to avoid doing so and showing the fallacy of excuses as such. And I have some personal examples that I want to share with you. But first, I just want to let a few more people arrive. So, you know what? I'm just going to pull my chat up on my phone, because it's not really working very well for me here on my computer. Thank you. Perfect. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for some more people to join us, if you have any experiences about taking personal responsibility for yourself that relate to any of the things that I'm sharing, feel free to share those as well. I'll get started here with an example that happened even today. And so I was doing my morning routine, and I was taking care of some chores around here, which our family is all together for the next couple weeks. We're doing a kind of a prolonged family reunion. We're doing an official family reunion tomorrow for the 4th of July, but we're all staying here on the lake for a couple weeks. And this morning I had a lot going on, and I was locked out of my office, this garage space, which I'm using as an office while we're all here together, because there's only so many rooms, and I need somewhere where I can work. So I'm here trying to get in, and my dog's barking, and I'm feeling stressed. And, you know, I'm a little hot-headed, so I'm pacing around cursing, fuck, what the fuck? You know, because I've just, you know, my dog is just incessantly barking. And meanwhile, I'm juggling 5 different things, trying to get homework done, trying to take care of some other things on my computer. And then I'm locked out of the garage because you know, long story short, somebody else was using the garage and they didn't know that I was working in here. So I was just like, fuck. And so I started just, you know, verbally, like, not really yelling, but loudly saying, fuck, I can't believe I got fucking locked out. And my sister accidentally locked out. And then she opened the door and I said, why the fuck did you lock me out? Started losing my temper. And then I thought about it. You know, I wasn't too mean, but I wasn't nice. I was kind of being a dick. And I felt justified in being angry. Felt really justified. So I stewed in it for another minute, and and then I realized even if she shouldn't have locked the door, it's not like she knew that I was working in here, first of all. And second of all, even if I'm right and she shouldn't have done it, I have no excuse to lose my temper like that. That's what I realized. No excuse to lose my temper. I've been working with my anger for 10 years now, and I've gotten much so better at dealing with it. But every once in a while, the valve will loosen up a little bit and I'll let some steam off. And it's not okay with me. And that's what I realized. I did a little bit of journaling about that, and I was like, there's no reason why I should be justified in losing my temper under most circumstances ever. There's very few circumstances that I would allow myself to permissibly lose my temper, and that would be in circumstances of injustice or protection and things like that. But in this circumstance, there was just no excuse. And I kept trying to my mind kept trying to come up with various excuses and reasons why it was okay to lose my temper, why it was permissible to lose my temper. And I had a very good epiphany. And that epiphany was there's no fucking excuse. There was no fucking excuse. It doesn't matter who was right. If the other, it doesn't matter if the door should have been locked or not locked. There's no fucking excuse for being a dick. And I could have said it politely. I didn't have to lose my temper. So then it got me thinking about this topic of taking responsibility and not making excuses. So what I did is obviously I apologized. And I said to my sister, I said, "Hey, I want you to know that I'm sorry for cursing, and there's no excuse. I don't have any excuse to lose my temper and act like an idiot. And it doesn't matter what you did. There was just no reason that I should have done that, and I'm sorry." And she was like, "That's all right. That's all right," and it was over. But I could have just as easily, and I wanted to not say sorry because I felt vindicated and I felt justified in my anger because I really needed to get in to get my work done, and I was stressed and the door was locked and blah 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 blah. And it's a long story. I don't want to get into all the details of why the door was locked and stuff like that. But essentially, I took responsibility for that, and it wasn't easy because I had to humble myself. And in order to humble myself, I had to let go of any notion of needing to be right. And that's what's difficult, right? Is that it's so easy to point the finger and see what other people are doing wrong. And that's where I wanted to go with it. But the fact of the matter is that I'm my own source of accountability. The only person I can control is me. I can't control anybody else. I can't control other people's actions, behaviors, or attitudes. I can control my actions, behaviors, and attitudes. And when I realized that it's futile ultimately to spend my time thinking of what others could better. Because if I'm not really focusing on myself and how I need to improve, then I'm not doing anything to better myself or the world. In fact, I'm probably making things worse. So this was a good lesson for me this morning. Obviously, this is a lesson I've learned many times in my life, but I learn it over and over again when I make mistakes. And when I get into any sort of conflict with another human being, it's so easy, especially if the other person is doing something wrong. So easy to just focus on what they're doing wrong and use that as a justification for myself to do wrong. Often we're right. Often other people did do something out of hand, out of line. And that, while that may be true, what I've found in my experience is there's just no reason why that has to lead to a a projecting of blame onto others to the exclusion of taking personal responsibility for oneself. And that's what I'm trying to work on. And I want to hear if you're here, do you have any experiences like that where you tend to want to blame other people when in reality you have a part? In 12-step recovery, when I was as I've well, technically you're always in recovery, but I've been sober for almost 9 years now. One of the things that we learned in the literature is that we can't afford resentment and bitterness as people who are trying to live spiritual lives, meaningful lives. The reason we can't afford resentment and bitterness is because it totally knocks us off of our path. No matter how vindicated we are, no matter how much injustice there is out there in the world or in external circumstances, there's no, it's a dead end road for those of us who are on this particular path. And it even says in that literature that we're better off leaving resentment and bitterness to those that can handle it better than us. Anger, it's speaking about. We're better off leaving anger to those that are more justified in handling it. So it's taking this approach of humility, of we're not very well equipped to deal with anger, even if we're righteous in our anger. We're better off leaving that to people who can better handle it. And I really like that. Michael, what's going on, brother? I'm glad you're here. Shane, what's going on, brother? I'm glad you're here. Shane says, hey, what's up, people? Have you read any Nathaniel Brendan? I think the most important thing I've ever done is taking full responsibility for my life, well-being, how I deal with myself and others. I'm going to write that down, Nathaniel Brendan. That's fantastic, Shane. Nathaniel. Y'all have so many great sources that I find every time I do a stream. So basically, in essence, I think Jordan Peterson has it right when he says that resentment and bitterness is kind of one of the core forces that leads to evil or to any sort of wrongdoing. And I find that I have to pay very careful attention to my internal feelings and processes to see where I'm starting to build up resentful attitudes towards towards the structure of reality, towards my life, towards my relationships, where I'm starting to build up feelings of jealousy, feelings of frustration. And if I just let those fester within me and I don't purge them by either journaling them or some form of doing some form of self-reflection that allows me to move through that emotion, then inevitably what happens is it becomes toxic. I become dangerous to others psychologically and emotionally. Not like physically dangerous, but I become a burden to the world and a burden to myself. Michael says, Shane, I love Brandon. He helped me a lot before I knew of Peterson. I don't understand his criticism of Brandon. If you read him carefully, you'll find they have similar outlooks on self-esteem. Brandon is known as the self-esteem guy. Says Michael. Zala says, welcome, Zala. I don't think I've seen you in this chat before, so I'm glad to have you. Even to think about taking responsibility for our lives, not making a decision yet gives us strength. I feel it immediately. Absolutely. And it's like taking a harsh medicine that strengthens you in the long run. Because I did have to swallow my pride this morning when I had to apologize to my sister. Like, I really felt right. I felt like I was the one who was right. And then I really meditated on it. I did some journaling because I think these things are important. You might think it's just like a passing thing in the day. I don't think so. I think that if I start to build up a resentful attitude towards other people, I need to stop it right in its tracks and sort it out right away. I do not let myself suppress it. Okay. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but I strive not to let myself suppress it. Now, I'm far from perfect. I make mistakes all the fucking time. I'm a good example of a mess trying to sort themselves out. But what I'm trying to say is that if I let it fester, it'll just become horrifying. And so I stopped it in its tracks. I went to my journal. I closed my eyes to feel, and I did some writing. What's going on here? And I noticed there's a part of me chattering away. Well, I can't believe she fucking did that. She shouldn't have fucking did that. Dog's barking all morning, blah, blah, fucking blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, I sunk deeper into my reflection, and a voice came inside of me and said, very strongly, like a strong father figure or a strong authority, but a wise presence, a wise and nurturing presence at the same time, and said, "No, you don't get to make any excuses. You lost your temper. You started cursing. You were raising your voice, and you were losing control of your anger. That's unexcusable. I don't care what happened out in the world. You don't get to do that." Boom. It was like, fuck. And then I like shiver went down my spine because I was like, oh shit, it's right. Like whatever that voice is inside of me, it's fucking right. Doesn't matter. I was wrong. So then I realized I have to apologize. And I paled because I don't like apologizing. Apologizing sucks. Well, it's good, but it's hard. You know what I mean. So I did. And I knew if as soon as I had to apologize, I knew that I couldn't afford to make any excuses or hold that resentment whatsoever. Because there was that little part of me that wanted to apologize like this, that still resentful part. Look, I'm really sorry that I fucking lost my temper, but you were being a real bitch. Or, oh, look, I'm so sorry that I lost my temper, but you have to understand, you locked the goddamn door and I had to work. What were you thinking? Or even a little more subtle than that. Listen, I probably shouldn't have lost my temper, but just hear me out. Like, it was a really stressful morning, and you knew I had a lot going on, and it was just really tough. And it just happened, and you understand, right? And you knew you shouldn't have done that. And no, that's all fucking bullshit. That's not taking responsibility. That's being weak. So I didn't do that. I said, listen, there's no excuse for what I did, and I'm sorry. That's it. Period. That's an apology, not that fucking excuses and bullshit. Anyways, I'm gonna read some comments. Daniel says, "Hi Ryan." Hello, Daniel. It's just a pleasure to have you here. Gloff says, "The power that lies within." Absolutely, my friend. That is what I was accessing. Michael says, "Could you do a video on how to journal? I used to avert organization until I saw Andrew's general daily and weekly checklist." That's awesome. Yes, I can do a video on how to journal. That's a great idea. I'm gonna write that down. Actually, video on. I will make that happen. And there's a lot of different types of journaling, a lot of different ways journaling works. So we can get into all those details. Daniel says, responsibility is to taking care, I'm guessing. Well, if by that you mean taking care of yourself and of others, absolutely. Absolutely. Gloff said, "Did you lash out at your girl or something?" Sorry, join late. No, I didn't lash out at my girlfriend. It was my sister. I lost my temper and started cursing. I mean, I wasn't like "fuck you" or anything, but I was like, "Fuck, Jesus Christ! I can't believe you did that. Fuck, don't you understand?" It was like that. It wasn't good. It was unacceptable to me. I shouldn't have done it. Shane says, "I think I've learned with responsibility when it comes to dealing with people. I've tried to channel my energy into exercise or even what you said into journaling or thought or whatever it takes." Um, yeah, absolutely. And that's the integration of the aggression that Peterson talks about. And when we don't integrate it, it comes out sideways. And when we don't consciously integrate our aggression and channel it through areas of work, exercise, other responsibilities in our life, learning how to have good boundaries, when to say yes and when to say no. For example, if you say yes all the time when you really want to say no, then that could tend to build up a kind of a pressure under that valve, a suppressive pressure. And it can only hold so much pressure before it starts steaming out a little bit and coming out at other people. On the other hand, if you integrate your aggression, you're in full control of when that beast comes out. And you get to choose when to use it and how much to let out at a time. For example, you could say, "No, thank you. I don't want that." Minor. That's not a lot of aggression. That's just a minor boundary. You could say no. That's a solid amount of integration. You could say fuck no, then you could say fuck you, then you could say let's fight. There's like multiple levels to this game, but you're in control of where you take it, and you can use context to decide what's necessary. For example, is someone threatening your life? Uh, Dr. Strachan always tells me, don't take 10 pounds to a 1 pound argument, Ryan. Take 1 pound to a 1 pound argument, take 2 pounds to a 2 pound argument, 3 pounds to a 3 pound argument. What does that mean exactly? It means meet each situation with the context it deserves. Don't take more to something than it deserves or needs. That's always been my issue as a hothead. You should have seen me when I was 17. I had no fucking control over my temper. It was not good. As a hothead, I would just let it go. Reckless abandon, you know. There's context. It's important. Shane, did I read that? Yeah, I did. Gloff says, I lashed out at my girlfriend yesterday. Yeah. It's important that we take responsibility for that stuff. So good for you for bringing it up. Lashing out, people think of lashing out as abuse. Like it can look like that, like physical or strongly verbally abusive, but lashing out can just be being kind of a dick, being a little bit of a standoffish asshole, or acting like you're justified in being moody when you're just being moody and you just are resentful and you're blaming it on someone else. That happens too. And we're human, we all have our crutches, we all have our downfalls, we all have our areas of inadequacies. Everybody does. Even people that you think probably don't have them. But the more self-aware we become and the more willing we are to work on it, the margin of error gets smaller and smaller. Michael says, then there's me. My mind is a cross between Clockwork Orange and John Wick. Sounds like you're very aware of it, though, of where things can go. That's one of the things I appreciate about Mercury and his journey, because we all know what he's been through has been very intense, going in and out of being institutionalized and psych wards and not being able to control the contents of his mind and going what he calls mad, to now where he has created a way of managing that somehow, where he allows these days to come, but he works with them rather than them having him by the balls. And so he's got some range of control over his manic states, which I think is a great accomplishment, to be able to control your mind like that. And it's an ongoing process, we're never done. I think that this notion that we grow up and we develop our personality and then we're done is silly. I don't think anybody's ever done. It's not like physical growth where you top out at 6 feet, or you top out at however much you weigh, however developed your physical body is. You get what I'm saying. I mean, obviously you can get fat as shit or skinny, and that can go on and on throughout your life, but there's certain fixations that we have physically that we don't have psychologically, is my point. And those fixations those permeable psychological boundaries allow us to grow and change throughout our life, to develop, to have epiphanies, to change our strategy, to take new outlooks on, to try on different parts of ourselves and see how much room there is to grow in a specific direction. And so even though when we're developing something, we feel like we're heading to a destination, we're really just on an ever expanding journey that never ends. Daniel says, something needs to change, and it's probably me. I don't know how to do this, but something inside me does. I will learn from my mistakes and not defend them. Exactly. Yes. Being defensive only lends credence to the fact that there is something wrong. It only reinforces that something's not right. Being humble and admitting our faults allows us to access the parts of ourselves that are resilient and strong enough to overcome whatever's happening. The parts of us that are higher and wholer, that are our potential. And when we just lend ourselves to that humility, good things happen. Just like this morning, I didn't want to apologize. I didn't want to swallow my pride because I wanted to be right and I wanted it bad. It's a sacrifice to give up pride and being right. It's a sacrifice to give up resentment and bitterness. It comes at a heavy fucking price, giving up resentment. Giving up resentment is almost excruciating sometimes because we have formed an identity around the resentment. We're forming an ego complex, so to speak, around the resentment. It's giving us ground to stand on where we can attempt to find some false semblance of security. Letting that go is stepping into the unknown and taking the hero's journey. To sacrifice means to make sacred. A lot of people don't know that. When we sacrifice something, we make something sacred. And I think that Peterson got it right. And I think that a lot of the ancient teachers and wisdom seekers got it right in understanding that all great feats are done through tremendous sacrifice, whether they be spiritual, intellectual, architectural, on and on. So when it comes to sorting ourselves out, I have a strong feeling that the progress becomes exponential once we start putting skin in the game, making sacrifices. Because a lot of people want all the change, but they don't want to put any of the blood, sweat, and tears in. They don't want to let go of the things that they're forming their identity around. So they're not really going to change because they don't really want it bad enough. That's why the cliche, how bad do you want it? It's kind of true. How bad do you want it? How bad do you want to change? How bad do you want to grow? How bad do you want to heal? How bad do you want to feel healthy psychologically, physically, spiritually? Sometimes I don't want it bad enough. So I let resentment win. And I have to beat myself down to the ground for a couple more hours till I realize, oh shit, I'm doing it again. I'm allowing myself to be run riot by my emotions. It's time to get control. It's time to harness my energy and focus, take responsibility, and stop making the fucking excuses. Daniel says something needs to change, and it's I read that. I will make right the wrongs I've done wherever possible. I will continue to examine my behavior on a daily basis. I will live life in love and service, gratitude and trust. This is not from me. excerpted from Gratitude and Trust by Paul Williams and Tracy Jackson. The book co-wrote by Paul Williams, the singer, songwriter, and actor. Basically, a recovery is for everybody, not only the addicts. The book is about that, to point A to point B. Absolutely. That's the point about recovery being for everybody. I like that a lot. Michael, explain service. It's something that doesn't sit well with me. Both you, Ryan, and Colton mentioned it recently. I always felt an affinity for Voltaire's. I think he's going to continue. Service, something that has been embedded in my personal process of growth. And the idea of service is the idea of being in relationship to something greater than yourself. It's not a trivial service. It's not a slavish service. It's not a service that comes with obligation. It's a service that comes with purpose and meaning. So it's not the type of service where you are doing it as a mere artificial obligation to other people, right? It's the type of service that you're doing out of a deep love and care for what's meaningful. And service doesn't necessarily have to look a certain way. Doesn't mean anything in particular. It could be helping people with something specific, or it could be writing a poem, sharing that with someone. It could be meditating. It could be doing something all by yourself, alone, in service of greater meaning. I mean, being in service is not a strictly interpersonal phenomena. You can be in service in a lot of different ways. So to me, being in service is getting outside of your selfish mind that's only ever thinking about you. Me. What do I need? What do I want? How do I feel? How do I sound on this live stream? Are people liking what I'm saying? Do I come across as somebody who has something to say? Are they going to like it? Are they going to subscribe? Are they going to give us a donation? Are they going to blah, 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 blah? Me. How did that sound? How did that come out? Oh man, I shouldn't have said it like that because that doesn't sound good on me. Me. Okay? That's my problem. Selfishness. So in order to get outside of myself, I need to be in relationship to something that I can serve that's greater than myself. That's how I look at it. That's what I believe. I love you all very much. Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to stay and continue my strangely toned stream, in which is different than others, I have to go. I have other things to attend to. And I'll see you on Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll read the last few comments. Voltaire's those who can make you, Michael says, continuing, Voltaire, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities, which is an argument for not serving. And then Michael says, so you're saying essentially being real. Yes, absolutely. Gloff says, you're becoming a better speaker, Ryan. I'm highly selfish too. I think most people are, and it's a far bigger problem than people want to admit. Well, thank you very much for acknowledging that I've made progress in speaking. That means a lot. And I'm glad that we can share it in our confession of our selfishness. Daniel says, I have to go. I will watch it live later. See you, Daniel. All right, everyone. Adela, welcome. Mercury, welcome. I will see you all on Friday. Love to you all.